And let's talk about what we're going to do. I've done quite a lot of the HB Lives in the past, and generally my favourite shape is to work something more triangular, which means it gets heavier towards the front. But today I want to change that and do something a little different, and I want to work with round graduation. I've got a pre-done one here. I want to do two different variations of it, but I just wanted to show you kind of the idea of what I'm working on. Really nice kind of beveled halo round graduation. We've got two different shapes going on here, and I'll explain what we're going to do on this one over here. Graduation is a build-up of weight, okay? And we're going to do a round shape, so what that means is it's going to get heavier towards the top, and it's going to get heavier towards the back. We are downtown in the city here, so you will hear a bit of background ambience. We like that, adds a bit of texture to what we do in our studio here. But yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get heavier towards the top, and I'm going to get heavier or longer towards the back. So classic round graduation. And as I do in most of my Knowledge Destroys Fear classes, I like to do two different variations so that you guys get to see, and if it's a hands-on class, you get to do and feel the difference between both. And both, what I'm talking about is external graduation versus internal graduation. And what that means is basically a higher elevation on one and a lower elevation on the other. External graduation being the heavier graduation, and internal graduation being the lighter graduation. What it means basically is surpassing the round of the head with elevation. What a lot of people tend to think is that anything above the ear is layering and everything below it is graduation, and that's not true. Everywhere on the head there's a 90 degrees, so if that's 90 degrees and I pull the head down to that, then I'm going to make this hair longer than that, so that's graduation. So what I'm going to do, if we look over here, you can see it on the board. I'm going to work one side with more of an elevation working through, still pulling down and building weight towards the top, but not as heavy as external graduation. So external graduation, really what that will do is push the weight this way. So it kind of helps to elongate the face, widen the face, in that cheekbone area. Whereas internal graduation will tend to flatten out that weight line. So it pushes it up a little bit more and it makes it a little bit more leaner and flatter. Again, why would you need that? Everyone's got a different face shape, so you can't always use 45 degrees of elevation. And what we'll get to know in this haircut, the graduation is much more than 45 degrees. So without further ado, let's get started. And if you guys have any questions at any point, please feel free to ask. I'd love to answer as much as I can while we're here together.
Got a nice international audience from Malaysia and Portugal, and yeah.
Thank you. Is there a water spray there? Thank you. All right. So just talk about this side. We're going to start on the internal side. I've sectioned from the parietal ridge all the way through here, and I've followed that round of the head all the way down to the occipital. So really working within that round of the head shape. It's round graduation. So what that means is we're going to have to work with this balance of the head shape, whereas triangular works with that balance of the head shape, working from the occipital following through on the jaw. Well, we're working on this round of the head. So what we'll do is we'll build weight into that area first, and then we'll work into the top. Now on this, what I'm choosing to do is I'm going to work more of a vertical diagonal back sectioning to create this round graduation. And the reason for that is what it will do is it will actually create a leaner graduation. Because I'm cutting it vertically, I'm able to cut a flatter vertical dimension, a flatter vertical line. So that will actually make that graduation look a little bit leaner. If I use horizontal sections, it tends to make the graduation a little bit more rounded and swollen, which is what I'm going to do on the other side, with it being external graduation. So we're going to get started.
Hello from London.
What's up, London?
Canada. Kenya.
Whoa, what's up, Africa?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's nice to be here with the global audience that we have. Big fan of Hairbrain. Been doing this for many years for Hairbrain, so it's really nice to be back doing this. We did one a few months ago. I've since we've had the pandemic, I've turned half of my salon into a studio so that we do virtual education and all that kind of stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my vertical diagonal section. It literally follows the angle of the hairline. It's following that natural angle. So that's what's going to help me with this angle. The first section I want to do is actually establish like the perimeter, the outline through this area. Instead of just coming in and elevating that out and just kind of going for it, you know what I mean? Which you can do, but that's going to be a little bit more risky, you know what I mean? Maybe putting it onto the skin is going to make it a little bit easier for you to establish and know where that outline is. So let's get started. So I'm just going to calm that down. And focal points for round graduation, obviously you can cut it at any length you want, but you know, you can work off the chin and that jaw working backwards, you can work off the lip if you want to, working backwards, or you can really work off that nose, that cheekbone and the ear, and that's the length I'm going to work with. This particular style of haircut originally would have been called the Orbit. Very Vidal Sassoon, contemporary classic from the early to mid 90s. So all I'm doing is just putting that line in. Obviously it's on a mannequin, so the hair sticks to the So this just gives me the guide and a visual to now work the inside. So if I now pick that hair up, guys, what are you going to see? So let's do this way.
Yeah.
That might be better.
Oh, there we go. That's nice light, yeah.
Okay, cool. So now if I look at that with elevation, look, I can see a build-up of weight that I've created. So by placing it down on the skin and cutting from here to here, that gives me that build-up of weight that I need. So I'm now going to use that as a guide all the way through. So I've established the perimeter through the front here. And now I'll just pull this out with elevation straight out from the head. And I'll angle the fingers. And I can see that build-up of weight. And all I'm going to do is just clean that line up. It has to look right with that elevation. Cool. So I can see where that's going to be. Again, could have gone longer. It's entirely up to you. Same principles, just cut it longer. Next section, same angle. Now it's really important that we understand about section size here. Because if I take too big of a section, it takes me too far back and then I'll over-direct too much and it will just get heavy very quickly. So I want my weight to travel through the haircut. I don't want it to be such an extreme drop-off. If I do, I would pull everything forward into that first section and get the strongest drop-off. Mullet graduation is what that would be. So now what I'll do is I'll pull number 1 out from the head and I will bring number 2 forward into number 1. So my fingers are vertical diagonal back, just like the section angle, and I'm pulling number 2 into number 1. And I'm not pulling it down. I'm working vertically, right? So my graduation is being created by the angle of my fingers.
We've had a few new people join asking what we're working on right now.
Okay, so I'm working on round graduation. Let's pull this one over in the background.
Yeah, there we go.
You can see a good visual. We're working a really nice, beautiful halo round graduation. So instead of working the classic Karen right now, the triangular, we're more with kind of that round, like Karen O. Yeah, it's kind of feeling to it. Obviously, you're not putting a fringe in it. I'm going with a little bit heavier, kind of visor-ish through the front. Mm-hmm. So again, number 1 straight out, number 2 goes forward into number 1. All right. Number 1 has been created by placing the hair onto the skin and putting whatever outline you want in there. Next section, section number 3, vertical diagonal back. Every section is parallel. I don't want to start changing towards horizontal because then what that does is it takes me too much real estate into the back already. So I'll start affecting the shape that way very quickly. I don't need number 1, I need number 2 and I need number 3. And I'm going to bring number 3 now forward into number 2. So my body position is literally where number 2 is right now. And I'm stood right in front of it, so it's very difficult for me to see what's going on. So what happens is I actually put this foot forward and I leave this foot back, and it enables me to actually swing my body around to see what I'm doing. And because this right leg's here, I'm pushing the hair forward to that.
Lots of hearts on that.
Thank you. Now, one of the big things here is being careful when we cut it, not to cut past the second knuckle. See, in this position, my fingers need to be pointed up because my thumb leads the way. All right. On the other side, it would be the opposite. My fingertips would be pointed down and my thumb would be leading the way, obviously like so. Right? Mm-hmm. Much different angle, right? Different finger position, sorry. But with this one, what I don't want to do is I don't want to go past that because look at my fingers and pretty much everybody's fingers. They get wider towards the bottom. So if you're not careful, you'll layer the edge of your graduation. Layering is a removal of weight. So if you've got a removal of weight with a build-up on it, it's just going to collapse all the time, right? So, again, previous section, just take my previous. Don't need those two anymore. And we can just kind of glide through this now in the same manner. I probably should have cut some of this length off to make it easier, but who knows, some clients come in and want massive changes like this. So.
Especially these days.
Yeah, working from mullets, shags and all that kind of stuff
into
something a bit different. So you can see the flow of weight getting heavier towards the back. It's a beautiful shape, but it also opens up the face.
Yeah.
So all this is going to be on show. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you don't want it on show, round graduation is probably not the best technique that you want to use. You might want to move more towards triangular, so it closes in the face, or square, so it closes in this area. Mm-hmm. But round really opens up this. So if this doesn't look the greatest, don't do it. So continuing through, vertical diagonal back, same angle sectioning. Try to be cleaner.
Recap, we're working on this round graduation haircut right now. That's what we're at.
So what I'm doing, guys, is I'm working vertical diagonal back sections, and I'm cutting graduation, and I'm over-directing forward into my previous section. By over-directing forward, that makes it get heavier towards the back. It's really simple, guys. Pull away from what you want to keep. So I want it to get heavier that way. I need to pull it this way. I want it to get heavier that way. I need to pull it that way. Pull away from what you want to keep. So my fingers have calmed down now. I was a little jittery when I started there. Got the old nerves going. So again, try not to go past that second knuckle. Alright, we'll keep going.
Yeah, pop over here. There we go.
Being very careful not to change the angle. When you get to this round of the head, it's all of a sudden a different plane to the head shape. It's not rounded through here, it's a little bit flatter. And then it really rounds in this back area. So if I'm not careful, I'll start to pivot my sections and start to become more horizontal. Then it's all about elevation. So then I can actually start to make it get shorter in the back if I'm not careful. So what I need to do is keep my sections the same angle all the way through. So if you're thinking about, like, let's say this is a clock, right? This is an ode to my friend Ira. this would be 12 and this would be 6, right? So I'm 5 after the hour, 25 till the hour. That's the angle of section. So again, into the previous section, making sure that this right foot is planted right at that previous section. By that being there, it enables me to pull the hair forward into that. But I'll push this forward again so that I can actually swing my body around and see what I'm doing. Now, some people might want to cut this on the outside of their fingers. And the only issue and challenge with that is understanding what's going to be the natural tendency. So if I was to cut this way, right, I might flatten this area by accident by dropping my elbow. So naturally on the outside of my fingers I would have to keep telling myself to keep the elbow in the air. Whereas working on the inside of the fingers, the natural swing of the arm is to pull down anyway, so it just makes it easier on me. I'm not having to think twice as hard. I'm not having to do something I don't need to do. So again, forward into the previous, all the way into the next.
We have a question here. Could you cut the bob first with this cut and then do the graduation?
You could put the outline in first, for sure. But what you have to realize that you might then lose that outline if you're not right on the money with it every time. That's probably one of the harder ways to do it, is to cut that outline and maintain it all the way through, just like it is with triangular graduation. So to me, I like to just put this front area, and then she sees that, they see that, the person, and then we're okay, we can move off of that. But by all means, you can definitely put your outline in first and work off that. You've got to be careful that the ear rounds through and the hairline gets heavier at the bottom.
Right.
I just did a little cross check, just coming in horizontally and having a look at my shape, and I can see the flow of the haircut just slightly angling towards the back. And that's all I want. I don't want this massive drop off. So if I did, then I'd use a different over direction. In this case, I'm just over directing to my previous section. So it's only going to get me a certain amount of weight left in the back area. To me, it's all about experimentation and just playing around with different balances of these shapes.
Yeah, they said cutting the bob, then doing the graduation. It's like doing two cuts when you can do it
Just in
this
one
way
place,
and
yeah.
it's faster.
Definitely. Obviously, you're always kind of working on a time schedule, aren't you? And it's, you know, sometimes important to kind of delegate your time accordingly to what you're doing.
Right.
You know, what you want to spend most of your time doing. And as a haircutter, and me as a haircutting teacher, my job is to make and get rid of the superfluous, the unnecessary. And that's kind of why we do a lot of things a little differently, as far as like switching haircuts up and not starting them in the most traditional places and trying to do it in a more simplified, easier manner that works for us. Smarter,
not harder.
Exactly, that's the term. Something I was taught very early on at Vidal Sassoon that I started Sassoon in '94, and one of my mentors was Stephen Moody. He was the boss man, and he would always say that, work smarter, not harder. I think nowadays we call it hybrid.
Yeah.
So everything's forward into the previous. So just slight over direction all the way through, so I get a slight drop off towards the back. My section size has been about the thickness of one of the fingers that I'm actually using to cut the hair, so that I can control it. Again, I'm cutting the haircut. So if I had massive fingers, then that wouldn't work. You know what I mean? If I was Shrek hands, not going to work for me. So it really, you know, not too thick, because remember, the head shape isn't flat, it's not a box, it's rounded, so there's a curvature every time, so you have to live within that curvature. That to me is more common sense than anything.
People are commenting that they appreciate the talk about your body position and how you're using your feet to kind of help control.
Yeah, it's really important that, guys. You know, we spend a lot on working with these, don't we? And we focus on these so much. Haircutting's not in the wrists, right? It's all elbows and shoulders that actually move the hands to do what we do. If you use your wrist, then you'll damage yourself after a while. But it's really, you've got to think of it. Where are these attached to? Your body, right? Your body's attached to your legs and your feet. So this determines where you are. So if I'm stood over here, I'm going to pull the hair over here. It's that simple. So you have to learn to use this to help you. So to me, figuring out what your body will do to help you is the best thing, because you don't have to think as much about what you're doing then. It gives you that time and freedom to actually have a conversation with your client, because you're not thinking, or make sure that my foot to keep the elbow, blah, 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 you know. There's a lot of things that we have to go through in a mental checklist before we open and close the scissors. So some of those things are, you know, eliminated by simplifying. So I can really see the flow of that way into the back. Obviously nothing refined with the outline, that would be afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think I've got just 2 more sections here in the back. Now, if I was cutting this same exact thing on both sides, my sections would be now crossing through to the other side. And then I would do the same thing on the other side, and that's how you get that nice connection, and the corner will meet there in the middle, if it's even. If it's not even, then that corner might be over here or over here. So, into the previous. So the scissors that I'm using, because I'm sure someone's going to ask at some point, are from Hairbrain, BHB Pro AG55, with a really cool handle. Nice small scissor, so that you can get into this area and cut graduation. What you don't need is swords to be cutting this particular technique. So something on the 5" to 5.5" inch size is probably the best for graduation. If not, then your hand is further away from this hand. It's quite difficult to have more control when you're like this. The closer you are to your hands, each hand, the more control you'll have over it.
Lots of hearts for the scissors.
Yeah, big scissors are great for like outlines. Gets it done nice and quick.
It's really comfortable. I just put them in my hand the other day. Super comfy. Mm-hmm.
So, we've worked all the way through.
Gorgeous.
Vertical diagonal sections from the front all the way back, forward into the previous, and what that's done is it's given me this round flow of weight from front to back. A little water in here so it weighs it down. You can see that flow a bit better. So obviously you can see the weight line working through here. So if I would have gone more lip area, would have been longer and lower than the hairline. So keep that in mind. If you don't want to see short hair in the nape, then you go a little bit longer with it. You know, you could work down here if you want to. I'm sure everybody's seen Karen O's hair from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. She's had it up here, she's had it down there, and it's a really great shape. It moves fantastic when it's longer. So now what we're going to think about is putting the top into the underneath, and just make sure I like what I see through here. I'm happy with that. So connecting the top. Again, it's internal this, so we're going to be working through into the top, not just pulling this down onto this. If I pull this down onto this, then that's external graduation. I'm just going to make that weight line heavier and heavier and heavier. And by doing that, sorry about that, what that does, that weight line then goes sideways. Right? I want that to be a little flatter. So I'm going to work through here more internally. So the whole thing of internal graduation, it's not something that is widely taught. I think it's becoming more and more taught now because I think the sassoon culture of haircutting is very widespread nowadays. And people are doing these shapes and playing around with that and trying to figure out all the aspects of haircutting instead of just doing haircuts, you know what I mean? Flying the plane instead of hitting autopilot kind of thing. To me, it's a must know because it's a build-up of weight. So if you think about it, graduation is 1 degree of elevation all the way up to 89 degrees of elevation, right? But why does everybody that teaches you just say 45 degrees? You know what I mean? Why does nobody say 58 degrees or 25 degrees? And that's the thing you've got to understand, it's more than 1 degree in graduation. So if you think about it, internal graduation is closer towards layering than what external graduation is. External graduation is closer towards 1 length, so it's in the lower elevations, whereas internal is in the higher elevations. It's almost like what I just did. I over-directed into the previous, right? I could have over-directed everything forward, that would have been the heaviest, right? It's the same thing, I can pull everything down and make it the heaviest, or I can pull down into the previous and still get heavy towards the top. I can take that weight line and push it higher and higher and higher if I want to. And that's what graduation is, it's placing weight in areas that don't look so great on that person's face or head shape. Hope you guys are enjoying this.
Mm-hmm.
We got up super early for this one so that everybody in the world can watch it. We also have a working salon here, so we like to get things done early so that the salon can be as nosy and loud as possible. And messy.
People were very happy to hear more about graduation and versus layering and internal versus external.
Good. I think we all know how to layer. Layer's so easy. Do you know what I mean? Layering is just to like, boom, snip a piece of weight. That's layering. You remove some weight, right? Graduation is much more complex than that, and there's so much more to it. It's a beautiful technique. It's building weight. It's building foundations. Pure cliche. Here you go. It's architecture.
Yeah.
All right, so let's join this in. All right. So what I'm going to do is I can't really make this stick on the skin and cut the through on the face. I wouldn't want to do that to any person anyway. Freak them out. All right. Done that too many times. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this and I'm going to hold it at the lowest elevation, just like that first section I did to establish that length. So there's that length. All I'm going to do is continue that, and I'm actually just going to make it a little bit heavier than I think I want it. That's a thing that you should all do. This is the face. Don't make a mistake on that immediately. All right? Work a little bit longer, you can always cut more hair off. That's the key to haircutting and being in control.
Nicholas says he's explaining everything so well. My favorite educator. Never miss a Monday class with all of the factory girls and guys.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we do this often. We do this every week on Mondays. KDF Live. Again, just same as this, complimentary education for everybody globally.
Christy says, first time watching you guys. This is really good. Lots of love. Yeah.
Thank you, that's really nice of you. So now I've got that first section. I've got my second section now. So do you remember what happened before? I brought number 2 into number 1, right? But now what I don't want to do is bring it down here, because that's going to leave everything super heavy and external. So remember, I actually pulled number 1 straight out from the head, didn't I? And I brought 2 forward into number 1. So now I'm going to switch. I'm going to work on the outside of my fingers, because now I can use higher elevations. Oh, this is so hard to do up here. So I'm going to change that and make it easier on me so I don't have to really think about it too much again. Now if I'm not sure of my over direction, I will turn her around and I will use the mirror. Right? I have a monitor here so I can see what I'm doing as well. But this is where the mirror would be, exactly where you guys are, so that you can see your over direction into the previous section. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. And there is my guy. My follow that all the way through. Forward into the previous, and I'm elevating all the way through, and I'm following that build-up of weight. So I'm cutting graduation, I'm not cutting layers. It's getting longer towards the top. It would have to be the same length all the way through, or it would have to be shorter at the top and longer at the bottom for it to be layered. That would be a removal of weight. A build-up means it's continually getting longer and longer and longer. So yes, I will still have a weight line, but it won't be as heavy as if I pull everything onto it. So let's keep going. Vertical, diagonal, back sections, they stay exactly the same as what the underneath was. Second section, I don't need the first. So we'll get rid of number 1, now number 2, and number 3 forward into number 2. Because I'm stood back here, it's a very good idea that you look in the mirror before you open and close the scissors, so that you make sure that you're pushing that hair forward into the previous. So again, just to recap what we're doing, guys, very classic internal graduation, working round graduation, working from the front towards the back. This haircut is originally called the orbit, but technically it's round internal graduation. On the other side, we're going to work external round graduation, and the popular name for that haircut is the firefly, or sometimes in the United States you guys call it the wedge. So again, into my previous section all the way through. There's the underneath, I'm joining it on. I'm elevating all the way through up to the parting. So you see how that's getting longer? That's graduation. Graduation is a build-up of weight vertically. So continue, it's like a light bulb, like the old school light bulbs, not those squiggly world ones.
Yeah, if you guys have questions, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, please. I mean, we're definitely working on something a little bit more technical here. Again, like I said before, not a technique that everybody's going to know about, internal graduation. Most people think this is layering. But again, it's very important that you understand what's what so that you have full control. Knowledge destroys fear. Again, it's always into the previous section. So I'm pushing forward. What if I didn't pull the hair, push the hair forward? What would happen? It would actually get shorter towards the back. Because if I have a diagonal back section and I don't use any over direction and I cut graduation in that angle, it will always fall heavier in the front, lighter in the back. But because I'm pushing the hair forward, it's dropping towards the back. So I'm getting closer here to the natural round of the head. So I'm going to have to, at some point here, start to pivot my sections to keep them vertical diagonal. Else it will just start getting really weird if I could keep going from this parting. So I'll take this last one before I start pivoting my sections.
I see pulling straight out of the head.
Nope, I'm pushing the hair forward, but this is straight out from the head exactly with my elevation. So it's my cutting angle, my finger angle, that's creating the graduation. It's not elevation that creates the graduation.
Yeah, maybe get one of these.
So my finger angle is vertical, and that is to get longer and heavier all the way through. And then the movement is to push forward. Remember, you're always cutting one dimension and you're moving the hair to create the opposite dimension. And you put those two together and that makes actually 3 dimensions. Height, width and depth.
Mm-hmm.
So now my sections will start to pivot in the back.
The spray he's using is water.
Yeah, I think they want to know a spray bottle, right? Yeah, you can get this at Hairbrained. Everything I use, you can get at Hairbrained. It's all there on Hairbrained, the pro shop. So.
Could top section be done using horizontal?
Yeah, you could use horizontal and then elevate into your previous this way. I'd say harder that way. But definitely, I mean, when I'm teaching this technique, especially with horizontal sectioning, we go through the whole principles of keeping it external and internal. So yeah, the option is there for sure. And the whole idea, guys, is to teach you how to control the haircut, to fly the aeroplane, to be the chef that knows how to cook everything and not just a cook that follows somebody else's recipe and has like 3 haircuts in their arsenal, you know. So I was very fortunate in my early days to work at a place that taught you everything about haircutting, and to be an educator there made me experiment on stuff and figure things out, you know, how to balance side partings and stuff like that. When to use what technique, how to place weight in different places in the head shape to make that person look more complementary. So, we're getting there. Again, I'm pivoting my sections around the back area so that I can keep them vertical, diagonal back.
This question from Stacy, could you go from graduation in the front to layering in the back?
You could very easily do that if you don't angle your fingers correctly. So you could create a layer by accident very easy here, just by flattening the fingers. You could cut this graduation in the front, and then you could layer the back just by connecting to that top piece. There's so many options, guys. That's what I was saying. Know how to control the airplane and you can do whatever you want. So I hope it's forward. You see my over direction into the previous section. Vertical diagonal back all the way through. And what I've done there is I've created a nice beveled round grad. When this is dried and that and ironed, then we come through and we refine and work on the outline. This was one I did last year. When we first had lockdown, I did a whole bunch of tutorials with my daughter filming. This is one of the ones that we did. And I just blow dried it today and ironed it, and it just still falls into place. So that's what I've just done. And what that does is it actually gives me kind of a flatter graduation because of the internal aspect of it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the other side. That one.
That side here. Let me get a... Now we're going there.
I'm going over here.
Okay.
So same haircut, same technique, but instead of going with an internal, more of an external. So this is for someone that you really want to leave some weight in there. Maybe that person's a little lean in the face. External graduation is really good because it's going to widen wherever you put that weight. So you can put that weight on the cheekbone, you can put it on the jaw, wherever you want. You start to push out that area. Whereas internal takes that weight, pushes it higher, makes it flatter. So internal is perfect for people that have the rounder face. Whereas external is perfect for people that have more of a leaner face. So it's pretty simple, the sectioning for the firefly or external round graduation. So what I've done is, just got my comb, working from right behind the ear, vertical section all the way down, right before the hairline really starts to drop off and be a completely different angle. That's horizontal, that's vertical. So we're going to take care of this area first. And I really love this technique, even if I'm cutting a graduated bob. So I could actually change the angle and make it triangular if I want to. The reason why I like working from the front first is because then you get the length in, and your client can see the length and they're happy with it. If you sometimes start in the back area with lengths, like graduated bobs, they freak out for about 15 minutes until you turn that corner. And then they freak out even more because it's not where they wanted it to be. So to me, sometimes starting in the front makes life a bit easier for you. Mm-hmm. So let's do this. This side will be quite a lot quicker than the other side because I'm going to be pulling down. Very simple. Now the immediate difference between the two, besides one being vertical and one being horizontal, is the kind of graduation that it achieves. When you cut vertical sections, right, when you cut your graduation vertically, you cut it with a flat blunt instrument. You're taking a vertical flat section, so it's going to be flatter whatever that build-up of weight is. It's going to be like that. Now, if I use horizontal sections, what that means is I'm using elevation. So I have a lot more movement going on in this region. So what happens is it creates a more rounded, beveled graduation, right? It's kind of like, on the other side, this will be much rounder than what this is. Because of, when I cut this, I'm going to be cutting a flatter plane this way. Mm-hmm. This will be around. So that's another thing to take into consideration. Understanding what sectioning does to your desired geometry. Horizontal section. Now, classic Firefly has many different interpretations of whether this is actually rounded, or whether it's flat, or whether it's more triangular. The classic Firefly, right, probably more of a slight angle to it. What would happen is Christopher Brucker cut the original, and what he would do is use a little bit of over direction backwards, and that would leave a little bit of kick and lip in the front there. What I do is I tend to just kind of cut that in anyway. So I always like to keep it more flatter. You can always take more off if you want to. So combing the hair down, and we're going to put this at classic Firefly kind of length. So I'm going to put it right where the ear is. Tap, tap, tap. And I'm cutting a line. It's flat. So that's my guide. So now we can start to build weight. Same as the other side, don't take giant sections. If I take a giant section right now, I've just built so much weight already up to that point. So it's going to be heavier than what I want it to be. So I take the section according to kind of the width of my fingers in a sense. The smaller the section, the more control you will have over it. But don't go too small with it because then you'll be there forever and you could make quite a lot more mistakes. The more sections you have, the more opportunities to mess things up. Mm-hmm. Right? So now, it's all about elevation. So whereas before it was an elevation straight out and it's finger angle, now it's more about where do I pull this to in order to make it get heavier. So you pull away from what you want to keep in haircutting. That's haircutting, right? Pull away from what you want to keep. So if I wanted to get heavier towards the top, I'm going to have to pull the hair down. Just like when you concave layer, you pull the hair up for it to get heavier towards the bottom, right? So I'm going to do the opposite to concave layering, which is graduation. So whenever you hear reverse graduation, that means concave layering. So what I'll do is I'll pull now the first section out from the hair.
Yeah, let's spin it. There we go. Yeah, that's great. I was just going to say that. All right.
So I'll pull that straight off the head. So when I look in the mirror, it's almost like number one is a shelf. And I'm pulling number two down onto the shelf. And there's my guard. And I just follow that. So I've I've started to build the weight immediately. Take section number 3, same size. Get rid of number 1. If number 1's there, I'm going to pull everything down to number 1, right? So super heavy. I don't want it to be that heavy. I want to build weight and then I want a weight line. I want the weight more in this area, cheekbone, not down here. I want to change the face shape, basically. So now, number 2 is going to come straight off the head. Number 3 is down into number 2. So it's like I did the other side. I pulled forward into the previous, didn't I? So I'm just pulling down into the previous. So the other side, I created the angle with my fingers. This side, I'm creating it with the elevation. So the lower I pull the hair, the heavier that becomes.
People like that. Great explanation, they say.
You see how that's sitting in now? And that, immediately, I can see the weight is in that area. So again, this is a brilliant exercise of how to control things. Graduation is a build-up of weight. It gets longer towards the top. It gets heavier towards the top. So I must pull down to do that. If I don't pull down, it stays the same length all the way through. So again, I just want to pull that down into the previous, so I get rid of number 1 and number 2, and 4 comes down onto 3. And I'm constantly using the monitor, guys, the mirror, because right now, the only thing I can see, personally, is my cutting line and the direction that I'm pulling the hair, whether it's backwards or forwards or straight to me. My elevation I'm unable to see. So that's what the mirror's for. See, now I turn, I can see it. Now I know I'm in the right spot. And I've reached the natural round of the head. This is where external and internal are kind of separated. So there's my cross check, a nice build-up of weight. And if you look at that line, guys, it's beveled. See the roundness to that? What I don't want to do now is come in and just blunt that off. All right? There's a difference between vertical graduation and horizontal graduation. They're not the same end product. So if I continue bringing down into my previous, what that will do is it will take me into the top. I'll be elevating above the natural round of the head. So I'll be taking this weight line, like this side, and pushing it up higher. I want to now put the weight there. So I've built the foundation, I'm now going to put the house on top of it. My sections can now be larger, because I'm pulling it to a stationary guideline. My stationary guideline is that last place I was just at, which was the natural round of the head. So the parietal ridge. Can a firefly be heavier? Of course it can. I'm choosing to make mine this particular weight. So now we're going to start to see this build heavier and really put that weight onto the cheekbone. You could start this longer, cut it at the jawline, use the same principles, you're going to put the weight on the jawline. So bring it down to that natural round of the head. So if it makes your life easier, section away what you don't need so that you don't pull the hair too low. So I know my guide is at the natural round of the head, so I can just clip all that away if I want, so that I know not to bring the hair into that. If I bring the hair into that, it just makes it heavier. It wouldn't be a mistake to get heavier. In this case, the mistake would be to get lighter.
Jennifer says there is a lot of good graduation and elevation skills that you can use on any style in this cut. Very informative.
Yes, there's Thank you for that. There's so much. There's the window of opportunity when you work graduation is insane. I think a lot of us don't know about that because we're told that it's 45 degrees. And it's kind of liberating to teach somebody and to see that change. Oh wow, I didn't know about that. Been cutting hair forever. So the possibilities are endless with this in a sense. Well, they're not endless, right?
Yeah.
There's a limit.
Nicola, is this now a stationary guide?
Stationary guide coming down to the natural round of the head now. So I'm placing the weight onto the cheekbone. I'm building my weight line. So I built the foundation up to the round of the head, and now I'm just placing the rest of it on top of it. Just like you do, you build up the weight in the graduated bob in the back, and then you place the bob on top of it. Same thing. This is a graduated bob. It's just a round graduated bob, or a round-ish graduated bob.
Nicola also requested earlier that you do a tutorial on the 5-point haircut.
So, really simple. Okay, so you see what I'm doing right now? This is the 5-point. It's square graduation. So what I would do is I would keep this line flat, and I would also keep my line in the back flat. I'd keep it square, and then I'd cut the points. That's how the 5 points done. I have the head sheets from that because being a teacher at Sassoon, I have all the notes and stuff from back in the day. And that's all it is. Real simple square graduation, and then we pop the outlines in after. So now let's look at this. You'll see it against my shirt. See, I've placed the weight right on that cheekbone. So I've pushed it that way. Whereas this side's so much flatter, leaner, because it's more internal. Right, so let's take this now into the back. It's really, really simple. We do the exact same thing. So whatever section in here, I'm going to take again. So I'm going to take my first section again. And now we move into the back. I'm sorry, I'm going to be all over here.
Yeah, I gotcha. I'll follow you around.
Okay. It'd also be a really good mullet technique to just graduate the front and lay the back. So many options with that.
Yeah. Be the bowl mullet, the bullet.
The roulette.
Yeah.
The round.
The round mullet.
Or the roulette.
Graduated mullet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Round. All the words. Okay, so my section in the back, vertical diagonal back. So now what we do is we want to connect this to that. Obviously, this was horizontal and this is a little bit on the vertical side. This becomes more horizontal as we work through. And that is because of the head shape. It will just transform into a horizontal sectioning without me pivoting. Always keeping that hair nice and damp so I have way more control of it. So what I do is I take this. Now you'll see a lot of people like pull that forward and do stuff like that. It's actually a vertical line now, so all I'm going to do is use that top piece and I'm going to take that graduation into the nape. So it's finger angle to begin with that's creating this initial graduation in the nape area. So graduation in relation to the head shape doesn't follow it. So I'm not cutting a line that follows it's not parallel to this section angle. It's not parallel to the head shape. If you follow the head shape, that's a layer. Right? So what I'm actually doing is I'm angling in. So in relation to the head shape, it's creating a V. If you don't have a V and you create and you're trying to cut graduation, you're actually cutting layers. Okay, guys? So that's a real key thing. Always keep that V in mind so that it's a build-up of weight. So I have to angle my fingers in and point in. I cannot follow it. If I follow it, then I'm just creating a layer, and a layer collapses. Graduation works against gravity. especially at lengths like this.
There's
And that takes me into the nape area.
there's a question, if you did with this technique with the razor, what would the difference be?
That's your question to answer there. Kelly is a razor educator here at the factory at Knowledge Destroys Fear. You've seen her work, it got posted the other day on Hairbrain.
Yay, thank you, Hairbrain.
So what would the difference be?
It would just be, it create a softer look, you know,
You'd be coming in and using space.
the elevation techniques and the control of the hair and the sectioning would all be the same. It's just a different choice of tool that would leave a softer, more airier feel towards the end.
So I take my second section, and immediately, if you look at this at the side now, Kelly, you're going to see that this is transformed from vertical to more horizontal.
Yeah, it's kind of,
Yeah,
it's
and I didn't
turning.
do that to do it. All I'm doing is I'm moving up and I'm moving across. Remember, this head shape has got this curvature that way and that way. So that's got something to do with it. I'm pretty good at knowing why, but there's certain things that I'm still like, it baffles me that
Like,
that
how does that
really
happen?
happens.
Yeah.
And I've been teaching for 25 years now, so I've been doing this a while. So number 2 into number 1, just like before, in the front. Forward, into the tree.
Now, do you think it does that with the sectioning because the head is head shaped and not a
it's
perfect
not
circle?
block.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect circle. Yeah, definitely, because it just you're moving, stretching it around, and so it went from being vertical because you've gone across to more horizontal. And it'll happen more and more with each section. So what starts off as vertical actually turns into horizontal. You don't have to make a conscious effort to make that happen. That's what I'm trying to let everyone know.
Yeah.
It's like we know a lot about space, but we don't know everything.
Get over
Not
there.
one
Oh, there we go.
person knows everything about haircutting. Probably know how to control the haircut, but there's so much things as to why. So again, down into my previous. Always using the front as the guide to make sure that I'm connected through. So that's why I section all the way through. A classic Firefly, there was no section down here. It was to work everything in one all the way through. It's just so complicated then. So just break it down and work on like focal points. That makes it a little bit easier on us.
Are you elevating your elbow?
Am I elevating my elbow? Yeah, I have to. If I drop the elbow, it's down here, so I've got to be up. So I've got to have the person in a position where I'm not like that, you know? I want to be trying to keep this as level as possible. So I'm always like that.
I'll get a wide shot here of body position and.
Let's keep going. So I work all the way up to the natural round of the head, just like the other side. That's just like the front, excuse me. Sorry. And I use the same exact elevation. I'm just pulling down into the previous section until I get to the round of the head, which I'm at now. So the sections above this, I'll start to pull down onto this last section here. Crossing over into the other side. Obviously there's a different round graduation going on over there. So the two don't connect. Again, I'm not doing The same on both sides. I'm doing two different variations for you guys, so you can see some differences between external and
Yeah, look at
internal and
that.
how to achieve.
That's a nice
You
angle.
can see it coming through.
Yeah,
can't you?
yeah.
You know, quite reminiscent of Trevor Sorby's wedge. I am leaving it quite heavy in this area. I could have gone in a little bit more, make it super classic firefly, like Princess Diana firefly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's still got its tendencies, this shape.
Dorothy Hamill
Yeah,
too,
it's
right?
that wedge shape. That's what round graduation is. So now my elevation is going to come down to this spot all the way through. So keeping it lower, keeping it external. Sometimes people get confused with that. Isn't everything with graduation internal? Yes, it's above the outline. But once you get inside, there's another internal. I'm talking about the head shape. So working that through, and you can see way more horizontal with the section as you move through. So there's my guide. Nice, clean, strong guideline. That tells me I'm at the right spot. You know, so if you're doing a kitchen cut and you've got no mirrors to let you know where you are, that will help you. Make sure your guides are nice and strong and clean in your fingers. Down onto that round of the head. Hope you guys have enjoyed this today. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. I get nerdy when it comes to this stuff. And like I said, it's nice to do something that I don't always do. You know, nice to switch it up a little bit and do some round graduation instead of my ultimate favourite, which is triangular graduation. Down to that section of the rounded head. So I'm not even sectioning away, I'm just pulling the head down onto it to make guides nice and strong. And you can see the roundness of the shape.
I like that you did both techniques so you could see the difference in the finish.
I think that is quite an awesome thing. You know, when we teach our hands-on classes, that's what we're doing. We're always doing one versus the other. You know, it's easy, you know, to do both sides, and then you just wasted some mannequin head. You know, it's nice to do a difference like concave versus convex and see the difference and how to achieve both. Instead of just doing the same thing. And that's kind of why I did this today. It's like I didn't want to do a mullet. I didn't want to do a shag. I wanted to do something a little bit more about controlling and something you can take and use in your mullets and your shags. It doesn't have to be graduation, it's the principles of control and stuff like that.
Jacqueline, thank you. Just want to confirm that you present a class every Monday. Is there a specific time?
Yeah, we do present on my Instagram, which is at Daniel Joseph Muldoon, or just type in DJ Muldoon. We do it every Monday. Generally, it's around 11 a.m. Pacific time. It's usually around midday Pacific time. And it's not only me cutting. Like I said, I'm surrounded by some amazing female educators. And we share it up and we do different things. Katie's going to do... Katie, are you next week?
I think it's next week.
Katie's doing next week and she's doing a live model.
Wait, no, on the 19th.
Oh, it's the 19th.
19th.
It's 19th. So, but we'll be here every Monday.
Yeah.
So, and we're always constantly doing stuff. If you follow the link in my bio and Instagram, you can find all the links to what we're doing.
Yeah, we're huge.
You can also access my HB Live class where I do contemporary bobs, which is available on hblive.me. I do 2 different bob variations. which are very awesome shapes, especially, you know, to have in your arsenal of haircuts and techniques to use. But yeah, you can find us here every Monday.
Just nerding out.
Just nerding out. Razors, scissors, all the above. Just cutting hair and having fun with it and sharing with you guys. So there's the two different variations. Obviously they're not dried or anything like that, but that will happen afterwards. Here's the kind of finished result of this particular technique. I did the same technique on both sides here. That little bit out over there. So this is the external side. And this is just flatter, leaner, internal side.
So much more like weight.
Yeah, more extension.
Yeah.
The external side, more flatter. Still get extension, don't you? But
Yeah.
it's just not as peaky. Right? That peak's what's really going to widen your face. And where you put that, right? You know what I mean? So you can put that all over if you wish, like so. Anyway, guys, I just want to thank you guys for joining us today, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, you can find us every Monday at my Instagram. And I just want to say thank you to Hairbrained and every one of you guys for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you so much.
Yay!
Woohoo!
Love it.